South Korea is no longer under the influence of Hinnamnor. It will eventually weaken into a tropical depression overnight. But the super typhoon took lives and left a trail of destruction. Authorities gear up restoration efforts to quickly repair the damage. Arbitrators under the World Bank ordered the Korean government to compensate Nolan Star for supposedly holding up the deal. The South Korean government strongly object to the decision. Hello and welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with our top story. Hinnamnor left at least 3 people dead and several others missing as it passed through South Korea. Homes and roads in the southeast have been damaged. Buildings have lost power. Our Shin Ha-young is standing by on the line with the latest. Ha-young, do fill us in.
Right, Daniel. South Korea's Central Disaster Management Headquarters said Tuesday that 3 people have died. 2 of the victims were in the eastern coastal city of Pohang, which today got up to 110 millimeters of rainfall per hour. 1 had died while trying to retrieve their car from an apartment underground parking garage following an announcement to do so after it had become inundated with flood water. 7 others trying to do the same at another parking garage in the city were considered missing, and among them 2 people were rescued, and one of them is a 39-year-old man who is reportedly in stable condition, and the other person who died was in the city of Gyeongju. And further down the east coast in the city of Ulsan, a 25-year-old man has gone missing.
Now, Ha-young, you left the country not only with casualties, but property damage and disruption to daily lives. Any updates in terms of recovery work?
Well, Daniel, among the 300,000 damaged telecommunication lines, about 84% of them have been repaired as of noon on Tuesday, and this is according to the Ministry of Science and ICT. It's expected to reach 90% by the end of the day, and people have also been suffering power outages. And almost 200 cases were reported affecting 90,000 households, and by 3 p.m. on Tuesday, more than 88% had been reconnected. And the state-run Korea Electric Power Corporation announced that it will make sure everything is back to normal by Thursday before the Chuseok holiday. And meanwhile, the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport said it has been securing public rental housing across the country that can be used as temporary shelter for people who have had their homes damaged by floods. And that's all I have for now. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, Ha-young, thank you for those updates. We appreciate it. The government will use all administrative capacity it has for prompt recovery. That's coming from President Yoon during a meeting to supervise response measures after the super typhoon exited the peninsula. He ordered quick recovery efforts and for the government to devise effective methods to help those affected. The South Korean leader expressed regret for the losses of lives and property and thanked first responders for their hard work. South Korea's trade minister is in Washington to discuss the Inflation Reduction Act. An Deok-gun will ask for changes and will also be coordinating with other affected countries, including the UK and Japan. Kim Dami has the details.
A ministerial-level channel between Seoul and Washington will be set up to discuss the Biden administration's new Inflation Reduction Act. South Korea's Trade Minister An Deok-gun announced the plan upon his arrival in Washington, D.C. on Monday, where he is scheduled to sit down with U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai, as well as other U.S. government and congressional leaders. An said he is sure that Tai is well aware of the gravity of the situation and that he plans to explain that the latest issue must be resolved if there are to be smooth economic and trade ties between the 2 countries in the future. In fact, the trade minister will request that the U.S. revises the bill and is seeking various measures that can be supplemented by the government if such revisions take time. According to An, South Korea will also coordinate with others in the same situation, including the EU, the UK, and Japan. Seoul's industry minister is also scheduled to visit the U.S. later this month to discuss the matter with his American counterpart. The IRA excludes EVs assembled outside of North America from benefiting from a $7,500 federal tax break. Kim Dami, Arirang News.
The government could announce plans to address wartime forced labor compensation. The issue has damaged relations between Seoul and Tokyo in many ways. The solution could reportedly involve funds raised by various Japanese firms. Min So-hyun brings the updates.
South Korea is reportedly close to announcing a solution to the issue of compensation for the Koreans subjected to forced labor by Japanese companies during World War II. Citing a senior South Korean government official, the Japanese newspaper Yomiuri Shimbun reported on Tuesday that the Korean government is set to propose a solution to Japan as soon as next month. The report also noted that in Monday's meeting in Seoul of a consultative body tasked with resolving the issue, discussions included possible compensation schemes, notably who would be responsible for the compensation and what form it would take. This fourth meeting of the body was led by First Vice Foreign Minister Cho Hyun-dong. Joined by government officials and experts, the participants agreed that it was inappropriate for the Korean government to compensate the victims using its state budget. Instead, they called for alternative measures such as having a third party pay the compensation while raising funds through South Korean and Japanese companies. But this too is a challenge, as the victims want the Japanese companies that subjected them to forced labor to sincerely apologize and pay the compensation themselves. Seoul's foreign ministry said it will continue to communicate with the victims as well as their legal representatives and civic groups to understand their needs and to resolve the issue promptly. The consultative body was launched in early July as part of the Yoon administration's efforts to mend ties with Japan. Relations turned sour after the South Korean Supreme Court in 2018 ordered Japanese companies to compensate the victims of forced labor during its colonial rule of Korea. The firms, however, have ignored that order. The South Korean government has been trying to find a diplomatic solution before the Supreme Court delivers its final ruling on whether to liquidate one of the Japanese company's assets. Min Suk-hyun, Arirang News.
Seoul's top nuke envoy is in Tokyo for talks with his American and Japanese counterparts. On Wednesday, they will discuss North Korean denuclearization and the security situation on the peninsula. This week's session comes amid rising concerns that Pyongyang may soon conduct a nuclear test. Also on the agenda will be the Yoon administration's so-called audacious initiative. Kim Gun-sung Kim and Takehiro Funakoshi will discuss ways to work together in case the regime agrees to return to dialogue. South Korean Foreign Minister met with his Laotian counterpart to discuss ways to strengthen bilateral ties. During talks in Seoul on Tuesday, they agreed to engage in mutually beneficial cooperation, particularly in trade and investment. The visiting top diplomat, who doubles as Deputy Prime Minister, vowed to support Korean businesses entering the country and welcome further investment in Laos. Other issues discussed include the pandemic, supply chains, and inflation. The two agreed to effectively respond to shared concerns. The prices of consumer goods have been rising here in the nation. This is happening as Koreans do a lot of shopping for Chuseok gatherings. Adding to that, the typhoon damaged crops. After the holidays, higher utility bills are expected as well. Here's Jung Eun-ju with a breakdown of the figures.
Shinramen is one of South Korea's best-selling instant noodles. One individual packet costs on average around 736 won, but that will soon rise to 820 won. Due to rising costs of wheat and starch, manufacturer Nongshim plans to raise wholesale prices for 26 of its products by 11.3% on average. The price hikes will take effect from September 15th. The main problem is that prices of most other items are also expected to go up. The Consumer Price Index was 108.62 last month, up 5.7% from a year earlier.
Agricultural product prices rose by 8.5% as vegetable and fruit prices increased. Livestock product prices, mainly imported beef, pork, and chicken, went up by 6.5% due to demand and cost increases.
The cost of eating out has also gone up, with the increase rate currently at 8.8%, the highest in 30 years. McDonald's Korea will raise the prices of 68 menu items by an average of 4.8% starting from August 25th. No Brand Burger also raised the price of 40 menu items by 5.5%, and other burger franchises in South Korea such as Mom's Touch, Burger King, Lotteria, and KFC are also raising their prices. As international energy prices such as LNG surge, electricity and gas will be more expensive too. They were raised in April and July in South Korea this year and will go up once again in October. Taxis too will be more expensive. The basic fare for mid-sized taxis in Seoul is expected to go up by 1,000 won to 4,800 won. That's more than a 20% increase for the first time in 3 years. After Typhoon Hinnamnor passes through South Korea, the cost of agricultural products is expected to rise further, putting more pressure on low-income households. 정은주, Arirang News.
The country's trade deficit is expected to continue for a little while longer. According to the BOK, this is mainly due to higher energy prices, which shoots up import costs. Choi Min-jung helps us look beyond the digits.
South Korea is likely to continue to see a trade deficit for the time being. The Bank of Korea explained Tuesday that this is due to slower growth in the export sector and an increase in imports. It also said this comes at a time when global oil prices are high and during a global economic slowdown. South Korea logged a total deficit of $24.7 billion from January to August this year. This is a drop of more than $45 billion compared to the same time last year. Almost 80% is due to increased prices of energy and petroleum products. According to the central bank, the country's trade deficit could decline by $9 billion a year if global oil prices drop by a yearly average of $10. It also added that the trade deficit is likely to continue with exports to China on the decline due to that country's economy slowing down. A decline in exports for mobile phones, displays, chips, and automobiles, as well as an increase in overseas production of semiconductors, are also contributing factors. The central bank also pointed out that other countries heavily relying on energy imports are also suffering from increasing trade deficits. It added that South Korea's trade balance could improve if prices for raw materials stabilize. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Last week, arbitrators under the World Bank ordered the Korean government to compensate Lone Star for supposedly holding up a deal to sell its stake in a local bank. Seoul issued a report on the ruling, pointing out that one of the 3 members of the arbitration panel found no evidence of government exerting such pressure. Han Sung-woo has the latest.
Cheat and run. That's how the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes describes Lone Star's guilty conviction following a 2011 Korean Supreme Court ruling on stock price manipulation. South Korea's Justice Ministry on Tuesday revealed a summary of the investor-state dispute settlement between the Korean government and Lone Star surrounding the company's 2012 sale of Korea Exchange Bank. The 22-page report showed, however, that the International Arbitration Tribunal adjudged South Korea's financial authorities to be responsible for delaying its approval for Lone Star's sale in fear of backlash from politicians and the public. The tribunal's majority opinion from 2 judges pointed out that South Korea took a wait-and-see approach until the sale price was reduced, violating its duty of providing fair treatment. On the other hand, a 3rd judge, the minority, said there was no direct evidence to suggest pressure from South Korean authorities aimed at lowering the price. Lone Star had sought to be paid $4.68 billion in the claim it filed nearly 10 years ago, of which the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes ordered the South Korean government last week to pay $216.5 million in damages plus interest. In response, South Korea's Justice Minister Han Dong-un said the ruling was unacceptable and that he'd be seeking its annulment. AP reports Lone Star had initially planned to sell to HSBC before the British bank dropped its $6 billion bid in 2008 after South Korean officials delayed their approval of the transaction. They cited legal concerns. A former Lone Star executive found guilty of manipulating the stock price of a KEB credit card unit. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
The nation's daily COVID-19 tally came to just under 100,000, a level not surpassed since Wednesday. Also, an on-week decline, down by about 15,000. The number of virus-related deaths dipped to 44. Just over 530 people are severely ill. Due to the typhoon, authorities say PCR test labs and clinics will either close or shorten hours. Seoul plans to ensure there's no let-up in support for the fight against COVID-19 during Chuseok. From Friday to Monday, there will be at least one COVID testing center open in each district. Also, for coronavirus patients, more than 1,000 hospital beds will be set aside. This is the first major holiday since the end of social distancing, so the capital's public transport will operate for a few extra hours, as it did on holidays before the pandemic. Over in China, at least 66 people have died as a result of the 6.8 magnitude earthquake that struck Sichuan on Monday. According to state media, 253 are injured and at least 15 people are still missing. The tremor caused landslides near its epicenter in Lunding, cutting power for 40,000 households and displacing 50,000 others. In that county alone, 249 buildings collapsed. The earthquake is the strongest to hit Sichuan province since August 2017. The final working reactor at the Zaporizhzhia plant was disconnected on Monday due to a fire caused by shelling. Ukraine blames Russia. Moscow, meanwhile, postponed the referendum in Kherson, which will decide whether the region will become part of the Russian Federation. Kim Bo-kyung gets us up to speed.
The final working reactor at the Russian-held Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine was disconnected from the grid on Monday due to a fire caused by shelling. That's according to the plant's operator, gov't. After getting a report from International Atomic Energy Agency staff, the UN watchdog said the line itself has not been damaged and that it will be reconnected. The IAEA is yet to release its findings following a week-long inspection at the plant. The sixth reactor facility in southern Ukraine and the largest nuclear power plant in Europe was captured by Russia in March, but is still run by Ukrainian staff. While accusing Russia of the shelling which caused the fire, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said such an act is just one step away from a radiation catastrophe and shows how Russia only cares about making things worse.
Shelling of the territory of the Zaporizhzhia NPP means that the terrorist state does not care what the IAEA will say. It does not care what the international community will decide. Russia is only interested in keeping the situation at its worst for as long as possible.
Meanwhile, according to Russian state news agency TASS, a referendum to decide whether the Kherson region will become a part of Russia has been put on hold. According to the deputy head of the Russian-backed administration in the region, there has been a pause due to the security situation, but Kherson is ready for a referendum. On the other hand, Ukraine claimed it struck Russia's Federal Security Service within the Zaporizhzhia region, where ballots for the referendum were being stored. According to Ukraine's defense ministry, all the existing printed materials in the ballot warehouse were blown up along with the headquarters that guarded the site. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Stocks in major European markets were mostly down on Monday after Russia announced plans to cut off gas supplies through the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. With an energy crisis looming, France and Germany agreed to supply each other with fuel and electricity. Lee Seung-jae has the full story.
Russia's state-run gas giant Gazprom announced last Friday that it would halt gas supplies through Nord Stream 1 due to a technical fault, which it blamed on difficulties having turbines repaired in Canada. Putin's spokesperson Dmitry Peskov also blamed the EU, the UK, and Canadian sanctions for Russia's failure to deliver gas through the key pipeline. Due to concerns over energy supplies from Russia, European markets closed lower on Monday as investors ponder economic risks in the region. The pan-European stocks 600 provisionally ended down 0.6% after recovering from earlier in the day. However, auto stocks plunged nearly 5% to lead the losses. Amid the energy crisis, Germany and France have agreed to work together to help each other out. French President Emmanuel Macron said he will be ready to provide Germany with gas, while Germany has agreed to send electricity to France if needed.
If I have to say it simply, Germany needs our gas, and we need electricity produced from the rest of Europe, notably in Germany.
Macron added that the infrastructure needed for France to deliver gas to Germany would be finalized in the coming months. Meanwhile, the EU is preparing emergency plans to cap gas prices or separate power prices from the soaring cost of gas, with energy ministers from the bloc due to meet on September 9th to discuss these issues. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News. An Suk-sun is named a National Intangible Cultural Heritage holder of the Pansori Chunyanga. That's according to an announcement made by the Cultural Heritage Administration on Tuesday. Pansori is a genre of traditional Korean musical storytelling by a vocalist accompanied by a drum. Chunyanga is one of the most well-known pieces based on a tale of romance. 73-year-old An has performed it for over 6 decades and has taught at the Korean National University of Arts. The Kugak musician also performed at the Lincoln Center Festival and at the Edinburgh International Festival. She joins the current 11 living National Intangible Cultural Heritage holders of Pansori. Soybeans have long been the primary base ingredient of gochujang and doenjang, which play key roles in various Korean cuisines. Researchers found a way to make them using red beans. Yoon sheds light on how the findings bringing a new flavor to attracting new consumers.
Meju refers to traditional blocks of crushed yellow soybeans, and they're the foundation for making doenjang, a type of fermented bean paste that dates back even before the era of the Three Kingdoms in the 4th century. Now, this is a food production factory that makes traditional pastes, and it's the first facility in South Korea to make meju from red azuki beans. It may seem like it's a breakaway from a deep-rooted tradition, but it's definitely piquing the interest of consumers.
People can't imagine making meju with red beans, but now that we really have, consumers are surprised and have been buying it.
There's a crucial ingredient used to make red bean meju, a species of bacillus fungus. The Rural Development Administration and the Chungbuk Agricultural Research and Extension Services have developed a patented technology to make red pepper paste that uses meju made from this fungus and red beans. And according to the Rural Development Administration, this new red pepper paste has a more savory flavor than is usual in Korean cuisine, and its antioxidant level is 41% higher.
The bacillus fungus makes the savory flavor. It has high antioxidant properties, and its rich polyphenol content helps protect against diabetes and high blood pressure.
Going forward, the Agricultural Technology Promotion Agency plans to continue developing new agricultural technology for food production and processing companies to bring unique patented foods like red bean meju. This should not only diversify food ingredients but also increase competitiveness for crop producers. Yoon, Arirang News.
All the rain caused by the super typhoon has now tapered off. As expected, heavy downpours were recorded, especially in the south of the country. Mountainous regions of Jeju Island saw 954 millimeters of rainfall. Pohang and Ulsan saw heavy downpours of nearly 300 to 400 millimeters. Typhoon alerts across inland regions are now completely lifted. Hinnamnor will continue to move towards the northeast overnight. By 3 a.m. tomorrow, it will weaken into a tropical depression. For tomorrow, conditions will be a whole lot different. Clear skies will make a return nationwide. Under blazing sunshine, temperatures will be rising to above these seasonal norms. This will cause wide temperature gaps of at least 10 degrees or more for most regions. The entire nation will see sunshine for the morning hours. Seoul will be starting off at 17 degrees. Daily highs in Seoul and Chuncheon will reach 27, Gwangju 29, Daegu and Gyeongju will be reaching 28 degrees. Until Friday, big contrast in temperatures are expected, so make sure to dress in layers. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.